The Cold War ended long ago, and the Berlin Wall crumbled under the heft of sledgehammers, and the risk of Soviet nuclear attack dissipated. So nuclear war preparedness quietly and gradually slipped off the agenda. However, we appear to be stumbling into a new era of nuclear anxiety that's precipitated predominantly by misinformation and fear. So I'm Dr. Becky Alexis-Martin, and I'll be exploring some of these myths and events with you during this new series, which I call Happy Nuke Year. So today we're going to be talking about uncivil defence and the Hawaii false alarm. So the rude awakening of the residents in Hawaii is just the apogee of a new phase of civil defence measures that have been reintroduced to prepare civilians for nuclear war. Last summer, for instance, for the first time since the Cold War, Hawaii had resumed monthly tests of its nuclear attack warning siren, and this was followed soon by the announcement of a new public campaign for nuclear attack preparedness back in November 2017. So these leaflets and multimedia announcements had already been distributed to the community to provide this guidance in event of a nuclear attack. So, with this anticipated from North Korea. Naturally, these activities would increase the local residents' perception of risk. So we know that any anxiety has also been heightened by some of the challenging exchanges between President Trump and Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un on social media. And whilst there's little formal dialogue between the USA and North Korea, Twitter has proved to be an uncomfortable mediatory for the leaders of these two nations. So what exactly happened on January the 13th, 2018 at 8:07 a.m. and how did it manage to leave the community of Hawaii and much of the world, watching panic-stricken for 38 minutes, waiting to learn if the world was going to end in nuclear war? So the residents of Hawaii are resilient. They're prepared for natural hazards anyway. They've got a deeper insight than many nations as to the meaning of living with risk. It's susceptible, Hawaii is, to tsunamis, to flooding, and to volcanic eruption. So many residents already organise emergency kits for hurricane season. However, how do you make sure that you're psychologically prepared for the advent of a false alarm of nuclear attack? Well, the answer is that, to be honest, you can't. When we consider ourselves to be at risk, we mentally tally the choices that are available to us and consider their outcomes. And most of us can only imagine how frightening it must have been to receive that short message on Saturday morning. Ballistic missile inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. This message was strengthened by additional radio and news broadcasts, which provided this impression that the cogs of a trustworthy and cohesive three-part warning system had been activated. Hawaii was forced to contemplate the unthinkable for 38 minutes. And many of the people who would have received this accidental message would have envisaged the irrevocable steps towards a nuclear attack. They would have felt powerless, clutching their families and trying to decide where to shelter. They'd have sent final messages to the people they love. The trauma was real, even if the attack was not, and it will take time for this community to recover from the impacts, and for the effects to families and children to fade. And so it's a rational response, nuclear anxiety, but it's amplified by civil defence mistakes such as this, where the perceived threat of nuclear warfare has a detrimental effect on society, and the psychological consequences of nuclear anxiety can be significant. So we know that there are long-term psychosocial outcomes to nuclear accident and nuclear warfare, regardless of ionising radiation effects, from Nagasaki to Hiroshima to Chernobyl. So I'd consider the Hawaii false alarm to be a wake-up call, and a reminder that we need to remember the decades of diplomacy between the USA and North Korea prior to Trump's presidency. And we need to ignore this farcical partisan mudslinging and the conspiracists on social media. And we need to make sure that we don't let nuclear anxiety make us lose our faith in the future.